Prabhupada ki jai. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pachani Visesa Sandhivari Paskechal Desatani Panchakopa Tirubhishya Kripa Sandhu Devi Vacha Titanam Bhavanedyo Vaishnavegyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Hare Krishna. So, last evening we talked a little about Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan during Kartik festival. We talked a little bit about his sister. So as I said, he remained in Vrindavan for that entire month of Kartik. And of course it was very wonderful to be there. It was my first time outside of the US, my first time in India, and certainly my first time in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada's Vrindavan. We've been living there, my wife and I, now for the last 5 years in Vrindavan. It's vastly different. Of course, it's completely the same in a transcendental way. Vrindavan is very much the same. I told you how I agree with what was saying to Prabhupada. It's not like the Vrindavan I was expecting after reading your books. The Prabhupada explained, very same Vrindavan. He said, you live there, you die there, you're liberated. That's Vrindavan. He said, you do 1% in Vrindavan, becomes 100%. We know everywhere Prabhupada went, it's Vrindavan. Vaikuntha, spiritual world, wherever the deities are there, Vrindavan, Prabhupada would say. Here, our deity minister, ISKCON deity minister, Nrsimha Kavachi Prabhu, he calls these deities, Srila Prabhupada installed, legacy deities. There's many deities installed. Then there's the deity Srila Prabhupada himself installed. Legacy deities. So I always say here, this place, very special place. I was told Maharaj, Anandandan Maharaj was saying, only place in Europe left that we have in ISKCON where Srila Prabhupada's stayed, Srila Prabhupada Tirtha. Very special place. The deities he installed, very special. Krishna Balaram deities, very special deities. One of the devotees was saying in Prabhupada's room, one of those days, 1972, Prabhupada was speaking. He was saying, even one day in the room, monkeys always creating so much havoc in Vrindavan. You have to accept them. We have difficulty sometimes in Vrindavan now to really, and Prabhupada said, rascal monkeys. They stole his slippers in Vrindavan when he was there. One day they walked in the door. Prabhupada at that time was staying up on the first floor. The first floor is where Guru Das and Jamuna stayed. I was telling you how the Prabhupada spoke to a monkey, told him, you don't come around anymore, stop bothering them, stop bothering them. So that was up on the first floor, not the ground floor. So Prabhupada's rooms, of course, were the ground floor, Radha Damodar temple, right next to the courtyard of the temple. But at one point, even while Prabhupada was there, they decided to paint Prabhupada's quarters. So Prabhupada went and stayed upstairs, where Jamuna and Guru Das had been staying. And so from that room, big patio, which was the roof, it was patio. Now we'd give Prabhupada massage there. And he just had 2 buckets. Told you Prabhupada bathed from 2 buckets. They were brass buckets. And Prabhupada, of course, at that time, ever since his heart attacks and his stroke, he was instructed by a doctor to just bathe in the midday. Otherwise, it would be difficult for his heart. Prabhupada followed that instruction. When he had his stroke in 1967, he was in his room, and there was one doctor. They say even he was a doctor, but he kind of was a drinker. You know, he drank a lot too, so he was a funny doctor. You get intoxicated. But he was outside Prabhupada's room, and he was talking to Brahmananda and Gargamuni. And he said, your leader, your Swami, he prays too much. He said he should walk. He said he needs to exercise more. He should walk more. He should walk every morning. Prabhupada overheard that conversation. Started his morning walk. From hearing from that doctor, he started his morning walk every day. He told me once, he said that 3 things kept him alive. Morning walk, his massage, Ayurvedic medicine. He wasn't taking a variety of Ayurvedic medicines. He took 1 pill. It was called Yogendra Ras. You can still find it. You can look it up in your Google it, Yogendra Ras. It was like a tonic. It was good for the heart, strengthen the heart. Had different aspects. Prabhupada took it every other morning, just before the morning walk. And like many Ayurvedic medicines, there was a, what's it called, a median. We took it with a little 1/4 teaspoon of honey and black cardamom seeds. He traveled around with this. It would be in his white bag. Little mortar and pestle. It was a black mortar, marble mortar and pestle. And every other morning, on his desk early in the morning, I would crush 2 pills. They were kind of a saffron color. And 1 seeds from black cardamom and a little honey and mix it all up. And before the walk, Prabhupada would take that and take it from the mortar, put it in his mouth, then he would lick what was inside. So that was the 1 medicine he took. The whole time I was with him, every other morning he took that medicine. That was the only 1 Ayurvedic medicine that he took. So anyway, in Vrindavan, I could give him a massage on the balcony, the veranda there. Buckets of water would be there. Prabhupada said, just the sun will heat them up enough. Whatever the sun does, that's enough, he said. The massage, it was always the same. Prabhupada would bathe, put fresh dress on, then he would sit behind his desk, put his tilak on, and then say, Nungatri. Always very straight. Srila Prabhupada sat very straight. So the one day, it's around 1 o'clock now after massage, Prabhupada's sitting there behind the desk, and he's just finishing his Gayatri mantra. So I'm ready to bring lunch in. I open the door, I come in and I offer obeisances. Prabhupada's chandan, his tilak he used, was always, he made it into a ball. So it was about the size of a golf ball. And that would be on his desk all the time, wherever we went. So I offer obeisances and I sat up. And when I sat up, Prabhupada took the tilak from his desk, hurled it at me, just threw it right by my head. And I didn't know what was going on. And Prabhupada said, monkey! So I had left the door open behind me when I came in. The monkey came in, took his slipper, right from inside his room, not outside. Came inside the room and took his slipper. To this day, they do the same thing. They don't take slippers so much. They like glasses very much. They take your glasses. And with that, they'll barter. They took Prabhupada's slipper because they're not interested in the slipper. Maybe this monkey was interested in Prabhupada's slipper. But they know they have something of yours you need back. And you're going to have to give them food in order to get it back. But this was my first experience way back then, 53 years ago, dealing with monkeys in Vrindavan. Anyway, Prabhupada got up from his seat and he said, come on. And he said, get my cane. So I got his cane. And the two of us would go outside the door. And of course, right outside the door, right over our heads, on the rooftop, is the monkey. And he has Prabhupada's sandal, Prabhupada's shoes, and he has it right at his mouth. And Prabhupada's already started, monkeys, rascals, these rascal monkeys, he says. And Prabhupada has his cane, and he's trying to get the monkey, trying to get the shoe, his slipper from the monkey with his cane. Of course, the monkey's smarter than that. He wasn't going to do it. Gives me his cane because I'm a little bit taller. And just swishing the cane. The whole time Prabhupada keeps saying, these monkeys, rascals, rascal monkeys. So then we pulled the cane down. And he tells me, he has to tell me everything. I have no idea what I'm doing. He said, go inside, get some pada. In Prabhupada's room, there's always a jar of sweets. Every room, anywhere around the world, there's a jar of sweets. Because if you come into the room, you leave with prasadam. Always left with prasadam. So I go in, and I just accidentally, whatever, I got 3 sweets. Dry, brown, dry sweet para. And I come back outside. And Prabhupada's instructing me. He said, now you offer the sweet. And the monkey's going to give you the shoe. He said, be careful. So I thought it was not going to be very difficult. No. And I can see the monkey's ready. He wants these sweets. He wants something to eat. So I'm like putting the shoe up. And the monkey's, I'm putting the sweet up. And the monkey's putting the shoe down. So the idea, of course, is you give him the sweet, and at the same time, he's going to give you the shoe. So the sweet's going higher and higher up, and the shoe's coming down from the monkey, and he grabs the sweet, and he still has the slipper. Probably, no, rascal monkeys, no, he said, be careful. And in between this, the monkey's, of course, chewing at the shoe. Doesn't just hold it. He has to destroy it. That's That's why they're called monkeys. That's rascals. That's why they're rascals. It's not a simple transaction. The whole time it's going on, he's nibbling with his little sharp teeth. He's nibbling on the shoe, on the sandal, Prabhupada's sandal. Do it again. He said, be careful. Yes, Prabhupada. He's standing right next to me. So again, and the monkey has the sweet in his mouth. It's like this now. But he's very intelligent. More than me. And I'm there with the next sweet. And I'm being very, very careful. Because I know now that he's, he wants these sweets and he doesn't want to surrender the slipper. And he knows I have 2 more sweets in my hand. So I start lifting up the sweet, and he's going down with this, and I lost the sweet. Second sweet. He still has the sandal. And Prabhupada's, no, Prabhupada's chastising me because I'm not able to get his slipper. All right, he said, try it again. Do it again, he said. And I get the sweet, and now the monkey's, his mouth is full. He's got 2 sweets in his mouth. And I'm putting up the sandal. Keep saying the sandal. I'm putting the sweet up. The monkey's with the sandal, dangling it just over my head. He's about that high in the air, and he's dangling it. And I'm trying and trying. And he grabbed the 3rd sweet, and I still didn't have the sandal. And then with the 3 sweets in his mouth, and then he has a sandal, and he ripped it. He ripped the sole, the heel of the sandal, kind of ripped into it. And then Prabhupada looked, he said, he's ruined it. He said, never mind. And Prabhupada went into the room, and I was defeated. So then I went in the room, followed Prabhupada. I came back out again. And the sandal was hanging like that, right on the edge of the roof. The monkey left it there. Because we were gone, sweets were gone, he was busy eating. And I see the sandal hanging there. And at that time, I mentioned the other day, Shalavati, one of the first pujaris, head pujaris in ISKCON. Her boy, she had 2 boys, Girish and Birbhadra were their names. One or both of them still live there in the Vrindavan area. Now they're in their 50s, maybe even 60. So one of them was there, Girish. He just happened to be walking by. I said, Girish, that's Prabhupada's slipper. I said, go up on the roof and get Prabhupada's slipper for me. He said, yes, Sruta. So there's stairs. There's always stairs going up to the next level. Whatever there is, they'll utilize. So that roof of Prabhupada's room, there are also stairs going up to that. So he goes up the stairs, and I'm watching from the door, Prabhupada's door, where he's staying. I'm looking up, and he grabs a slipper. As soon as he grabs a slipper, a dozen monkeys come out of nowhere. They're everywhere. You don't see them all the time. Kind of like the police. You don't see them. Something happens, they're there. That was the monkeys. They were there. He grabs the slipper and they all come and charge him, attack him. And he's yelling, Sruta Kirti, Sruta Kirti. I still had Prabhupada's cane. So I threw the cane up to him. So now he has a slipper in one hand, he has a cane, and he starts. That's basically, in Vrindavan, everyone walks around with a cane. You see young men, young women, not just old people. You have a cane, because you never know when a monkey is going to come and attack you. So then all the monkeys go away. So then he runs down the stairs, hands me the slipper and the cane. So of course I go back into Prabhupada's room, I put the cane by the door, offer my obeisances, and I show Prabhupada his slipper. Took the one slipper. And at the heel, the little flap, the monkey had torn it. And Prabhupada looks at it. He said, oh, it's not so bad. He said, can you fix it? I said, yes, Prabhupada. So somehow or other we got some kind of glue somewhere there in Loy Bazaar. I glued the flap back on. There's teeth marks, little holes all around where the monkey was biting on it and where he ripped it. But I fixed it. Prabhupada kept wearing those slippers. There was 50 devotees there in Vrindavan. Me, I was not very... Prabhupada never seemed to need anything. You know, he never asked for things. He brought him his prasadam every day. Gave him massage every day, but he didn't say, I need this, I need this, I need this. He was transcendental. So for me, I never even imagined of approaching some devotee and saying, Prabhupada needs new slippers. Monkeys chewed his slippers. I didn't do it. So we stayed there the rest of the time. Maybe it was a week or two. Prabhupada's still wearing those slippers, going on a morning walk every day. The slippers this monkey had chewed on. So after he left there, he went to Hyderabad. He did a week programs in Hyderabad, Pando programs in the evening. Thousands would come. In those days, you have a program, Swami's doing a program, thousands would come. All you had to do was some advertisement, and then everyone would find out by word of mouth. So every evening they were coming to hear Srila Prabhupada. But when we arrived there in Hyderabad, we stayed at this one gentleman's house. His name was Mr. Pitti, Vinayalal Pitti. He was very wealthy. At that time, probably one of the wealthiest persons in all of Hyderabad. He had a place, big place like this. And a big backyard, garages. He had 20 garages. Every garage had a different car in it. And when you have a car, every car has a driver. So there's always a driver. They have a little bucket of water every morning and they wash the car every day. He had one car there. This was 1972. I knew the car. It was a Chevrolet Impala convertible, a 1959 Chevrolet Impala convertible. Probably the only such car in all of India. He had one there. He took Prabhupada around in that car and went up and down the streets. Big greeting ceremony in the main streets of this convertible car. There's also pictures of that. Prabhupada in the back seat of this Impala convertible. So we get there. And Mr. Pitti, we arrive. We're at the doorway and he greets Srila Prabhupada. All his servants greet Srila Prabhupada. And he says to me, does Prabhupada need anything? I said, he needs some new sandals. I said, he needs sandals. He said, oh, no problem. He said, I'll have my servant go out and get some sandals for Prabhupada. So we went out. Came back later in the morning. This beautiful pair of sandals. And they were leather. So he brought them to Srila Prabhupada. He looked, he said, oh, he said, I can't wear these. He said, they're leather. He said, no problem. They went back and he got Prabhupada some artificial pair of sandals that were not made of leather. So all that time, Prabhupada just wore those sandals that this monkey had chewed on. Never even asked for another pair. That's devotee of Krishna. All he asked for is service. Only asked for devotional service. So those sandals, somehow or other, I wound up giving them to one devotee in Alachua. They're on his altar in Alachua in a glass case. You can still see the same pair of sandals there, sitting in his home on the altar in Alachua with this monkey chewed on. And one day there, we're sitting in front of Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's telling the devotees, live in Vrindavan 100 times. Everything you do, you get 100 times the benefit there in Vrindavan, where Krishna performed his pastimes. He said, but if you make offenses, also 100 times, you suffer 100 times for those offenses. Then he said, but even then, you commit offenses, you come back as an animal. He said in Vrindavan. He said, like these monkeys, just like the monkeys, they're very eager to have sex life, with their brother, their sister, mother, father, children, whatever, always engaging in sex, illicit sex. He said, so you have illicit sex in Vrindavan, you come back as a monkey. He said, and if you eat all kinds of nonsense there in Vrindavan, you're eating meat eating or whatever, he said, you'll come back as a hog, and then you can eat all kinds of stool. So in this way, he's going, saying different sinful activities of different animals. You come back something else, you can come back as a tree. Just like we know as the two demigods. They came back as trees to stand there, being naked. And one of the devotees said, Prabhupada, what about along the Jamuna? So many sadhus. Still like that. You can smell. They're there smoking ganja, all day long smoking ganja. He said, what happens to them? Prabhupada said, oh, he said, they come back as hippies in San Francisco. The devotee who asked that was a hippie from San Francisco. I don't know what his last life was, So everyone laughed. So this was Vrindavan, the time in Vrindavan. Prabhupada would do that. He could tell you, make philosophical points, and at the same time be funny, making his philosophical points. So from there, Hyderabad. Then we went to Ahmedabad. Same thing, stayed for a week, one person's house. Prabhupada did programs every evening. And now I had been in Vrindavan for about 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, I finally got sick. And I got really sick. I'm not even sure, but I think it was my first time I had malaria. Malaria is brutal. If you haven't had it, you don't want to get it. If you've had it, you know. And you can, if you don't, get your quinine. Very simple. The cure is simple. But if you don't get it, it's just 2-3 days, finished. You'll be gone. So anyway, the family knew. That was my first experience. They called in a homeopathic doctor. He was a little Indian man, and he had a little black bag. And inside the black bag, there's like 100 different little bottles. Everything looks exactly the same. In the little bottle, these little white round sugar pills in all the bottles, and the little things written on them. 30x, 100x, 500x, 1000x, different potencies. So I started taking those pills, and after 24 hours or so, because I was feeling better. And it was the first time I had ever been so sick. I was 21 years old. I had never had an illness like that. And I told Prabhupada. He said, how are you? I said, Prabhupada, I'm okay. He said, but Prabhupada, I said, I've never been so sick. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, really? He said, that's very good. He said, to be healthy, he said, is unusual. He said, in this world, he said, disease. He said, always disease, he said, is there. This was a disease. Think we're this body. This is our disease. We're all diseased with this. Prabhupada would say things. You could accept it on different levels. Initially, I just accepted that we're always sick. So we're always sick here in the material world. But then as I thought about it more, I realized we're always sick here in this world. This is our disease. We think we're this body. This is the disease. Skin disease. Prabhupada called it skin disease. So that was Ahmedabad. Then from there, went to Mumbai. There he stayed at Kartikeya Mahadevi's house. He was making, Kartikeya at that time, 72, he was making wheatgrass juices. He had books, all kinds of books about being healthy, how to be healthy, everything. And he was a great admirer of Srila Prabhupada. One of the number of Indian men never took initiation from Prabhupada, but they helped him in so many ways, so many different ways they helped him. Kartikeya, he appreciated very much Prabhupada's going all around the world, spreading Vedic culture. He appreciated. And before there was any temple in Mumbai, Prabhupada stayed in his flat. It was on Ocean Drive, right by the sea. Right by the sea there. So he stayed there. He gave the whole flat. Him, his wife, son and daughter, they all stayed with some other family members. He gave Prabhupada the whole flat. So Prabhupada had his sitting room, his bedroom. The rest of us, we stayed in one of the adjoining rooms, his entourage. His wife, Kartikeya's wife, she would arrange the cooking. There was a little lift that went from the ground floor. He was up on the second floor. Very small lift. Literally 2 people could fit in it. So as I told you, my service always was next to Srila Prabhupada. Of course, now we're in India. It's my first time there in India. First time I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He joined also San Francisco in 1967. So every morning, Prabhupada would go on a morning walk. Shyamasundar would drive the car, ambassador, those kinds. There were 2 types of cars in India. Mainly 2 types. You have ambassadors and Fiats. These little black and yellow Fiats. They were the taxi cabs. Fiats were the taxis. Ambassadors, people that had money, they had an ambassador. They didn't drive them. Servants, their drivers, their hired drivers would drive them. So Kartikeya, he let Shyamasundar drive that ambassador car. Anyway, it was the very first morning going up and down this elevator, and the elevator was very, very slow. And 2 people could fit in. So I remember the very first morning walk. We all got out. Shyamasundar, of course, he's walking down. Everyone's walking down the stairs, and Prabhupada opened up the elevator. Prabhupada gets into the elevator, and of course I think I'm going to get in the elevator with him. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. He kind of looks at me like, pushes me aside. He gets in the elevator with Prabhupada. Close the door, the elevator starts going down. So of course I just run down the stairs. I get down to the ground floor before the elevator. I open up the doors. Prabhupada starts coming out. Tamal Krishna Maharaj looks and says, Prabhupada, Sruta Kirti, he's already here. Prabhupada said, Kirti means expert. That was my first compliment from Srila Prabhupada. Kirti means expert, he said. So I was very happy. I didn't use the elevator, but it came down. And then we would walk right along. There was a concrete sidewalk right along the ocean. Prabhupada would walk back and forth as the sun's coming up. One morning we're walking back and forth, get out of the car, and as we're walking along, there's one man lying there, which was not an uncommon sight in India, someone just lying, sleeping right by the curb. And Prabhupada's walking. He said, see that man? Yes, Prabhupada. He said, he's dead. That was it. He was dead. Of course, we came back, man was still lying there. The Prabhupada said he was dead, so we assumed he was dead. So then the one day, we get back from the morning walk, Shama Sundar, myself, Srila Prabhupada, and we come up to the ambassador car. How many colors were there, ambassadors? 2. They had a black ambassador, and then they had like a cream-colored ambassador. That was it. No red ones, yellow ones, blue ones. There was a white one and a black one. So, Mahadevi's, his was a light-colored one, cream-colored one. So we get back to the car, and Shama Sundar gets in the front seat. He's got the keys, and I open the door. Prabhupada and I, we get in the back seat of the car, and we sit down. And Shama Sundar's in the front. He's trying to start the car, and the car wouldn't start. Shama Sundar was very quick. Wonderful secretary of Srila Prabhupada, Shama Sundar, very, very fast. The car won't start. So this goes on for just 1-2 minutes. And Shama Sundar is becoming very frustrated. He says, Prabhupada, I'll get a taxi. He says, something's wrong with the car, it won't start. So he leaves to go get a taxi. Different taxis are around. So while he leaves, Prabhupada and I were just sitting in the back of the car, comfortably, quietly. And these 2 young Indian men, they come up to the car. And they open the doors. And they start talking to Prabhupada. Of course, they're talking in Hindi to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada turns to me, he's laughing. He said, we're in the wrong car. We were sitting in the back seat of somebody else's car because they all looked the same, you know. So we're sitting back there. And Prabhupada said, that's okay. He said, they're going to take us home. So they shut the doors. Of course, the key Shama Sundar was using wasn't working because it wasn't the right key for the car. So they're driving us back to Kartikeya's place. Prabhupada told them where it was. They're driving us there. And Prabhupada saying, just see. He said, this is Vedic culture. He said, now, if we were in your country, sitting in the back of someone else's car, he said, they'd take us out and beat us up. He said, but here, he said, they have some culture. He said, they see a Swami. He said, they'll take us. So they took us home. And when we arrived there, and Prabhupada, he invites them upstairs for prasadam. You come up for breakfast. No, we have to go to the office. They said, thank you, Swamiji. Shama Sundar, I don't know when he came back. Still looking for that car. No. Another day, we're walking on the morning walk, and I'm feeling a little tired. In India, I always felt a little tired, everywhere I was in India. So we're on the walk, and the sun's coming up, and Prabhupada's walking, and Shama Sundar, I'm next to Prabhupada, Shama Sundar's next to me, and Prabhupada walked quickly. It wasn't a casual walk, it was power walk. And we're walking along, and Shama Sundar looks at me, and he starts laughing. He said, boy, do you have jaundice? He's looking at my eyes. You know, one of the telltale signs, your eyes turn yellow. He said, do you have jaundice? He said, your eyes are yellow. He said, they're so yellow. And we just went on with the walk, came back, go back to the place. No one said anything. So have breakfast, everything, and then I'm helping prepare lunch for Srila Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj is there. He said, you can't. He said, you can't serve Prabhupada now. He said, you have jaundice. He said, very contagious. He said, you can't be making his lunch. I said, oh. So, of course, I did what I always did. Went into Prabhupada's room, I offered a obeisance, sat up. I said, Prabhupada, I said, I was preparing your lunch, ready to give you a massage. Tamal Krishna Maharaj says I shouldn't do my service. I said, because I have jaundice. He said, oh. He said, what are the symptoms? I said, well, your urine's dark. Urine turns brownish in color. Your urine becomes dark. I said, and your eyes are yellow. I said, you become very weak. Prabhupada looks at me. He said, perhaps I have jaundice. Then he looks at me. He said, how do you feel? He said, can you do your service? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, do your service. He said, don't worry about it. 2 years later, we're in some life member's house somewhere, some city. Brahmananda had jaundice. One of the things, when you had jaundice was very good. When you have jaundice, what's the cure? Sugar cane juice. It was one of the positives having jaundice. You got to drink sugar cane juice all day long. And you would eat just boiled vegetables. You had to eat very, very simple, because you couldn't digest. So this was 2 years later. Brahmananda had jaundice. Brahmananda was a big devotee, very big devotee. So we're all sitting together, taking prasadam. And Prabhupada came through the room. And he sees Brahmananda's plate. He was just eating vegetables, boiled vegetables, and his plate's like this high, just vegetables. Prabhupada walks through the room. He sees it. He said, Brahmananda, you're going to eat all of that? Brahmananda looks. That's Prabhupada. He said, okay. So long you eat everything on your plate. Never leave anything on your plate, Prabhupada said. Eat as much as you want, but whatever you have on your plate, you have to finish. Yes, Prabhupada. So then he went in his room. Later on in the afternoon, I said, Prabhupada, Brahmananda has jaundice. Prabhupada said, oh. He said, what are the symptoms? He said, your urine's dark, eyes turn yellow, and I said, you're very weak. And Prabhupada said, oh, perhaps I have jaundice. This was Prabhupada's sense of humor. And when you get old, right, that's how you feel. You feel like you always have jaundice. You always feel weak and tired. So perhaps I have jaundice. None of these things, Prabhupada can say. If you can do your service, you do your service. So then one day, in Mumbai, where we were staying, I'm massaging Srila Prabhupada. Those days, still happens now in the cities, but in those days you would always hear hawkers, people in the streets selling their wares. So as they're shouting out, Prabhupada's telling me, because they're shouting in Hindi, Prabhupada said, oh, this one, he sharpens knives. So he's just walking through the streets saying what he does. And if you have knives you need sharpened, you've gone down. This one's collecting old paper. This one's selling sabjis and fruits, these different things. And so then I'm massaging Prabhupada's legs. And I'm massaging his right thigh. I'm massaging him. Prabhupada, he said, you see that scar? Prabhupada had 2 scars. I told you about the one, right, on his forehead? Yes? No? Yes. No? Yes. No. Yes, no? Okay, I'll tell that one too, to those that didn't hear that one. So he said, you see this scar? He said, I got that scar when I was little. He said, I was in front of the house. I was playing with matches. He said, and I struck a match. He said, and my whole cloth went up in flames. He said, and one man was walking by. He said, and he put out the flames. And he kept walking. That's all he said. And he just kept walking. He made it sound very mystical. He said, otherwise, he said, I don't know what happened. He said, that scar is from then. So the other scar, those that didn't hear, I was telling that, in Prabhupada's passport, says distinguishing marks, scar on his forehead. He had a scar right here on his forehead. So he told me that was the time he went out with his father. His father bought him a gun, toy gun. And when Prabhupada had the gun and then he looked at his other hand, he wanted another gun. His father always, whatever Prabhupada wanted, he would give him. But he said, no, you have a gun. You don't need two guns. And Prabhupada needed this gun for his other hand. And he insisted. But his father tried to remain firm. He said, no. And again, Prabhupada, I want a gun in both hands. His father said, no. He said, I laid down on the ground, banging my hands, banging my head on the ground, he said. He said, that scar is from that time. Imagine, banged his head on the ground. This was Prabhupada's determination. This is required, determination. And to become a devotee, one must be very, very determined. Prabhupada was determined, always determined from the time he was a little child. What he wanted, he had to have it. That was Prabhupada's mood. So all those things happened in Mumbai. Shortly after that, after Prabhupada left India, other things, I'll save this for tomorrow, we'll talk about Mayapur. I'll try to mention a few things this afternoon. Prabhupada in France, when he installed the deities. But anyway, we were at Bhaktivedanta Manor. This was in the summer 1973. I had been with Prabhupada a year by this time. And Prabhupada was there for his Janmashtami and Vyas Puja. So Janmashtami, as we all do, fasted. We all fasted till midnight. Take a little fruit. And after you fast all day, you're not generally very hungry. You know, when you fast, hunger kind of goes away. So even midnight came that day. I remember I just had a little bit of fruit, 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Just a little fruit. You're listening to Prabhupada every day, talking. What's he saying? Prabhupada, eat less, sleep less. We're traveling with Prabhupada. We hear his lectures over and over and over again. Devotee, practicing austerities. Reduce your eating, reduce your sleeping. If we overslept, he was ringing the bell, chastising us for sleeping. So sometimes you would hear, try to follow those instructions. So then Vyas Puja Day comes. Prabhupada, you see, there's a video of Prabhupada at Bhaktivedanta Manor, like 5, 6 plates all sitting on the floor in front of him. Prabhupada's picking something here, like that. So that day I didn't eat very much. Vyas Puja Day, 1 in the afternoon, just didn't feel hungry. So I took a little bit of prasadam. So it's afternoon, Prabhupada takes his nap. He rings the bell. I go in the room, offer obeisances, sit up. He looks at me. He said, are you okay? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, you're feeling all right? Yes, Prabhupada. He said, you look very thin. He went like this. I said, oh. I said, I didn't eat very much. I said, the last few days, I said, Janmashtami, I said, Vyas Puja. I said, my appetite wasn't there. I said, I didn't eat so much. He looked at me. He said, you have to massage me every day. He said, you have to be strong. He said, you should eat whatever you can digest. That's what you should do, he said. He said, how are you going to give me massage? How will you do your service? He said, if you don't eat. I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, eat. Whatever you can take, eat. That's what you should do. So that was living with Prabhupada. Everything he was watching. We were there for some time, over a month. It was Shiradakshai Vishnu. He was one of the first Indian disciples there in the manor initiated by Prabhupada. So he invited Prabhupada to his place. We would always get excited, Prabhupada disciples. We get very excited going to life member's house or something. We knew it was going to be a feast. Prabhupada didn't care to go out for anything, to eat his lunch. He didn't need that. But we heard he cooked in oil. This rumor was already going all around the temple of Mayapur. They're cooking in oil. No one cooked in oil in ISKCON. Ghee, everything cooked in ghee, everything fried in ghee, every choice made in ghee. But he said he cooked in oil. There's a photograph, all of us sitting there in Kartikeya in one of the rooms, Prabhupada at the head. 2 rows, one on each side, all the devotees, puris, halava, sabjis, samosa, like that, all this. So we all had prasadam. We came back to the manor. In the afternoon, Prabhupada rings his bell. I go in the room, offer obeisances and sit up. He looks at me. He said, so everyone liked the feast? Prabhupada always knew. He said, how would everyone like the feast today? He said, it Shiradakshai. I said, oh, he said, very nice, Prabhupada. But then he made me think. And I said, I said, Pradyumna's not feeling well. He said he doesn't feel well. Prabhupada said he ate 10 puris. Prabhupada was just sitting at the front there. He said he ate 10 puris, he said. That's what I said. I said, well, they cooked in oil. He said he ate 10 puris. And I said, well, yes, Prabhupada. I said, I also don't feel so well. I said, but I hardly ate anything. He said, that's true. He said, but you did eat 4 puris. That was Prabhupada. Everything we were doing, he knew what we were doing. And then I said, yeah, I guess I ate 4 puris. This was life with Srila Prabhupada. It was just delightful in so many ways. Very austere, very difficult, very wonderful. It all goes together. And bliss, ecstasy, and austerity, they always combined, one with the other, in Krishna consciousness. So it's time to stop now. It's the time. Anyone has any questions, comments, anything about prasadam? Otherwise, we go take prasadam. Yes?
I was wondering, what's your understanding of why Srila Prabhupada would take prasadam facing the wall?
It wasn't always facing the wall, but in many places it was. It was that way. One thing he would do, sometimes Prabhupada would be talking. A few devotees would be in the room. I would bring in the prasadam. I would set it down on the table. And Prabhupada would walk over, and he would, from his plate, he would take, and he would give it, who was ever there, he would give you something, a piece of fruit, a little sweet or something, and he would say, now you can go. He took prasadam, nothing else going on, no conversations, just honored prasadam. Right? You say if there's any conversations, they should just be very light conversations, but Prabhupada generally, no one. When I was with him, there was a few times where he allowed devotees to stay in the room, and he had a purpose. He was there for a very limited time, and he wanted to inject Krishna consciousness into them. And he allowed them to be in the room and would even spoke with them while he was eating. And that wasn't lunch, that was evening. It was just hot milk and puris and sabji. Same thing on the plane, quiet. No discussions going on. When you saw Prabhupada take prasadam, you saw someone that understood, was Krishna prasadam. It's Krishna. And taking prasadam, we call seva, prasadam seva. It's a service. So like everything we do, it's taken seriously. It's not just eating, haphazardly eating. It's Krishna prasadam. So that's, I can't say anything else other than, that was my understanding. It was like everything we do was like a sacrament, we would say. Christianity was taking a sacrament. You know that in the church, in the Catholic Church. You see, they give you that little host, but it's like, if you drop it, it's like a big thing. The same thing, Prabhupada with prasadam. Don't waste anything, Prabhupada would say. It's not just food. It's the very basis of our Krishna consciousness. And it begins with the tongue, taking prasadam.
Yesterday I was asking you about respect, remember? How you really emphasize with you also always respect, always
offer obeisances.
And many in everything, it looks like everything was so regulated with every single second. Could you talk a little bit about respect, because maybe I am not as good at that anymore, or maybe...
Yeah, I mentioned that the other day when a devotee didn't offer obeisances, and Prabhupada came down for his walk, and Prabhupada said, this is the beginning of his fall down.
Yes,
when we lose that respect, it's a dangerous place. Always needs to be there. And it is a very difficult thing. I know I'm in Vrindavan now. In Vrindavan, again, Prabhupada's deities he designed, he installed, placed in his home in Vrindavan. And I'm battling sometimes with the pujaris there that I feel just don't have that great respect. We see Prabhupada when he would come in to greet the deities. 80 years old, offering his dandavats respectfully all the time when he went into the temple room. For each deity he would do. Always that, of course it's there with realization as well. But like Gargamuni would tell a story, he joined when he was 17, right there in 26 2nd Avenue. And he said to Prabhupada, everyone's bowing down. And he said, I don't feel, why should I bow down? Why do I need to bow down? I don't feel like it's necessary. And Prabhupada said, well, you bow down and you'll understand. Through the process of doing what you should do, it's practice, and hopefully gradually through chanting and offering your obeisances, we understand we're before Krishna. Now he would say that. He said that in one lecture. He said, you're dealing with Krishna. It's not just some stone, marble, brass, whatever on the altar. It's Krishna. So that respect, just through the philosophy, we have to understand it and not lose that. Otherwise, it becomes mechanical. We don't want to be mechanical. And that's also not an easy thing. It takes practice, it takes philosophy. That's why all the books are there. Prabhupada said all his books, what are the purpose of his books? To bring you to the point of chanting Hare Krishna. That's it. All this philosophy is to bring us to the point of understanding we chant Hare Krishna. Krishna in his name, non-different. That's what they say. Krishna is not in his name. He is his name. The most potent form of Krishna is his name. The name of Krishna. He's there. So the more we take seriously, I said, over time I was with Prabhupada different men, young men, that would ask Prabhupada the same question. Come out in different ways. How do I control my mind when I chant? How to control the mind. Right? We have so many retreats, japa retreats. They have japa retreat level 1, level 2, level 3. How to control the mind, how to chant sincerely, how to chant with feeling, so many things. So they asked Prabhupada. First time was there in Kartik, in Radha Damodar temple. Devotee said, Prabhupada, how do I control my mind when I'm chanting japa? Prabhupada always said the same thing. No question of mind. He said you chant with the tongue and you hear with the ears. He literally, with his hand, he said you chant with the tongue, you hear with... So he bypassed where that mind is, there in our head. That's where we think this seat of the mind there in the head. He said, chant with your tongue, you hear with the ear. I said, shortest japa retreat ever. 30-second japa retreat. That's it. There's nothing else. You don't meditate on this. Sit like all these things. They're all peripheral. You chant and you hear. I just read one story, one of the early sannyasis chanting his japa. Prabhupada came out of his room. He said, are you listening to yourself? Because what the devotee considered he was chanting, Hare Krishna mantra, and what he was saying with his words. And you hear that sometimes. You'll hear different people chanting, maybe ourselves. You listen to the japa you're saying, to hear that you're saying the mantra, the whole mantra, 16 syllables. We always say it's 16 syllables. So Prabhupada came out, he said, are you listening to what you're saying? It's all about hearing. Everything comes from hearing. And like you say, respect also to the process of hearing. That's how we show. We have to respect. The same way Prabhupada faced the wall. Respect. Everything we do, we have to do respectfully. Yes?
In that the same story, I would like to share. When Prabhupada came in 76, I asked him on the lawn over there, how can I stop speculation? And Prabhupada just said, you must stop.
Do not?
You must stop speculation.
Speculation?
For me it was mental speculation.
Yes.
Prabhupada didn't say how, he said, you must stop.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, thank you. Jai.
Thank you.